Hello, and welcome to part 2 of this series of mini lectures on IRB basics. In this second lecture, we're going to define human subjects research. So far, you've learned what an IRB is and where the requirements for IRBs come from. In this lecture, we're going to define HSR as a subset of research and identify when a project does or does not require IRB review. Not all research requires IRB oversight. Only HSR has a requirement for IRB review. In order to understand what HSR is specifically, you'll need to understand some key terms and definitions. Our first definition is research. According to the regulations, research is defined as a systematic investigation designed to develop or contribute to generalizable knowledge. There are a few crucial concepts in the regulatory definition of research, so I've broken this definition down into its component parts. First, systematic investigation. A systematic investigation is some kind of predetermined system, method, or plan that is used to study a specific question or hypothesis, or is used to develop a theory. Systematic investigations involve the collection of information or biospecimens and the subsequent analysis of the information or biospecimens. Designed to develop or contribute to is hard to define, but ultimately it has to do with your intentionality at the outset of the project. That is, when you are developing a project, you should be asking yourself, what is the purpose of this project? How do I intend to use the results of the project? Will I share the results with other people? And if so, how will I frame those results? And finally, generalizable knowledge, which is also somewhat difficult to define. There is no one clear definition of what makes something generalizable or not, so you should always follow the best practices of your discipline. But ultimately, generalizable knowledge can be considered information that can be used to draw general conclusions beyond a specific group, entity, or institution. It's important to note that intent to publish might suggest that something is generalizable, but publishing something doesn't automatically make it generalizable, since people can and do publish on non-generalizable things, like medical case studies that only include 1 or 2 patients. Ultimately, generalizable knowledge has a broader intent to contribute to a larger body of knowledge for a broader benefit, and not to benefit a single or individual program. There are certain activities that are excluded from the definition of research for the purposes of the HSR regulations. Quality improvement activities, case reports or case series involving no more than 2 patients, certain scholarly or journalistic practices, most criminal justice activities, and certain public health practices are all excluded from the definition of research for the purposes of the HSR regulations. These activities may be considered research in a general sense, but are not considered research when determining if an activity is human subjects research specifically. Our next definition is human subject. According to the regulations, a human subject is a living individual about whom an investigator either obtains information or biospecimens through intervention or interaction, or obtains, uses, studies, analyzes, or generates identifiable private information or biospecimens. That second part of the definition is crucial to understand because it means that even if you never meet or talk to or interact with a person, they can still become a subject of your research if you use their private information. This is how studies utilizing retrospective data can become human subjects research. This diagram illustrates the concept of when IRB review is required. On the one hand, we have things that are research but which don't involve human subjects, like research that involves animal subjects, or research on non-living individuals, like certain anthropology research. These projects do not need IRB review. On the other hand, we have things that involve human subjects but aren't research. For example, a satisfaction survey that a restaurant asks you to fill out, or writing a biography on a specific individual. These projects also don't need IRB review. The only time IRB review is required is when you live at that intersection of meeting both regulatory definitions of research and human subjects. On this slide, I've listed a few examples of HSR. As you can see, many different types of projects can meet the definition of HSR, and all of them need IRB review. Now that you understand where IRBs come from and when IRB review is required, the next step is to understand the ethical and regulatory framework for conducting HSR, which we'll cover in the next lecture.